Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo of the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we're about to get started with the Dispatchers Roundtable, round 31. But as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Hello, and welcome back. This is round 31 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, and you saw a little blip there of open mic. That is because all the same intro is the same for all the shows, except for this one. I will be creating a Dispatchers Roundtable one here pretty soon, but I am excited to be here for this round. We are going to be talking about some awesome stuff and also reflecting on our past, our dispatch experience and how tech has come so far from then to now. Telematics data in 911, there's going to be a lot going on. So if you have any questions at all, please make sure to throw those in the comments. But also, as always, make sure to throw in some reactions and share this broadcast as well on your own feed or your favorite dispatch page. Make sure to throw that out there. This live broadcast is sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbine. But this is an exclusive Rapid Deploy Dispatchers Roundtable Round 31. And I've got a few things here really quick that I want to jump into and mention, and I'm going to change my audio here so you can hear all of this go through because we're back. And by back, well, you'll see here in just one moment as I play this. And again, I'm going to switch the audio here and share my screen just so that you can see this. And very, very excited about this.
2 years ago, the world stopped. A lockdown began, and our way of life changed. First responders continued to work, but their continued education stopped. Conferences were canceled. Training was in danger. But out of the pandemic, a new hope was born. The era of the headset began. And coming soon, are you ready?
Oh, yeah, there it is. DTBG 4, Dare to Be Great is back. And that's going to be the first full week of December 2022. Call for Papers is already out right now, started July 1st, and it ends September 1st. So make sure to get your sessions in there. And we already have a bunch of sessions that are coming in, as well as several sponsors that have already signed on. So if you're an industry partner and you want to get in on this, please do so. Make sure to send me an email to wttpodcast@gmail.com. That is wttpodcast@gmail.com. And this is going to be like the last blowout of the year. So it is going to be excellent. There's been a lot of people who've been asking for Dare to Be Great, and we're back with number 4. And there have been over 10,000 attendees to the Dare to Be Great virtual events alone and worldwide. All of the events that Within the Trenches Media has done virtually have now surpassed 20,000 attendees worldwide. So jump on this. Again, get your presentations out there. Would love to see them and have you be a presenter for Dare to Be Great 4. And again, industry partners, if you're looking to sponsor something amazing and be a part of something amazing, there you are right there. This is our Dare to Be Great moment. So let's do this. All right, here we go. We're about to get started here with round 31, and I am very, very excited to have my guest here today and everything that we are going to be talking about. So my first guest here is Sherry. Ladies first. Here with OnStar.
Hi, Ricardo. Thank you so much. Sherry Levesque from OnStar. I've been with OnStar for about 15, 16 years now, and started out on our training team at OnStar for emergency and stolen vehicle advisors. And prior to that, I worked in a primary PSAP in Michigan here for 11 years, which was very, very exciting.
Nice. Excellent. Well, welcome. And you and I have known each other forever, it seems now. And so it's awesome to have you on here and get a chance to catch up and talk a bit, because we see each other at conferences like all the time. And sometimes it's just from far away, from one booth to the other, just hey, or just walking by, and that's about it, because it gets pretty crazy at the conferences, right? There's so many different people that are coming around. They want to learn what you're doing, some of the stuff that I'm doing, and whenever we try to get together or whatever, it's just in passing because it's just that crazy.
It is. It's nonstop events, and there's so many people out there that are coming to the conferences now because they want to be in person. So it's definitely busy.
Yes, yeah. The some of those first ones that started up when everything was going back in person, it was just crazy. It was like a reunion. It's like just a high school reunion or something, or family reunion. You haven't seen each other in forever. It's like, how are things going? I haven't seen you. I've seen you over the camera, but nothing else. So here we are. Bring it in for the real thing. It has been really good. So I'm excited to have you here. And our next guest is Mitch with OnStar as well.
Thanks, Ricardo, and thanks for having me on. Mitch Pedersen. I'm also with the OnStar team. Before coming to OnStar, I spent 28 years in fire and EMS in a department in Southeast Michigan. Retired just a couple of years ago, and had spent the last 6 years of my career as the fire chief. So excited to be on today.
All right, excellent. This is going to be good because we're going to get, kind of a different perspective as well here as we're talking about, the benefits of telematics and 911, this rich data, but also coming from your side of it. So this is going to be excellent to get your perspective. And I always love getting those different perspectives, not just 911, but everyone else, all the first responders that come together to make this happen. So thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks.
And last but not least, we have Todd from Rapid Deploy.
Good afternoon, Ricardo. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
So my name is Todd Kamenetsky. I'm the Vice President of Partnerships and Strategy here at Rapid Deploy. My job is to work with fantastic people like OnStar here. But ultimately, my job is to work with all the partners to figure out how to get data into 911, how to make it impactful, how to get it adopted, and how to really drive that experience for the call taker. Ultimately, as a company, we're trying to reduce response times with data, and getting data adopted in the PSAP is at the top of our challenges and our mission.
Perfect. No, this is good because, I think back a little bit to when I was in dispatch and we would have the teletype coming over and we would see all of this data. It was just numbers though. We weren't putting it to anything. It was just numbers. And I thought, oh, this is kind of boring. But now, years later, and we'll get to this as we're talking, kind of reflecting and everything. Now, this data can do so much more. So those who are joining in, listening, whether it's live right now or in the replay, they're going to get a lot out of this. So again, thank you, all of you, for being here. And I want to jump right in and go to Sherry. So between you and Mitch, whoever would like to start, really, on OnStar, who is OnStar and really what it is all that you do?
Well, OnStar has been around for over 25 years as of last fall. We are a telematics system that's embedded into General Motors vehicles for the last 25 years. That's what we've been known for.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also outside of the vehicle now in a mobile app as well as in the home using Alexa enabled devices. So we serve as an interface in between a link between our customers and emergency services. We have approximately 22 million customers worldwide in the US, Canada, China, Mexico, and South America, but nearly 15 million of those are in the US and Canada alone. A lot of people who are listening right now have probably encountered calls from our advisors regarding crash incidents or even a stolen vehicle. We've been able to help with providing a lot of crash data, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but also the ability to slow vehicles down that have been stolen is also very exciting, a progression of technology that I've seen while I've been at OnStar.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think back to when I was in dispatch as well, as you kind of mentioned. A lot of us have probably taken phone calls and everything. And one of the things even now that I remember fully is the first like six numbers of the phone number when on the callback, because the numbers are the same. And they would call. I would be speaking to someone, and I would say, "What's your callback number?" And they would say the first three numbers, and then they would say the three numbers, but also add again, and then go with the last four numbers. And I remember I would be taking these phone calls and I would be repeating it in my head. So had taken so many that I still remember it now. So it makes me laugh sometimes because it was a great way to do it because it sticks in your head and you remember it. So it was always a good experience when taking these phone calls, but also hearing, folks in the background and everything else. It was just an overall good experience. So, now that we got a little bit of background on OnStar, I want to jump over to Todd really quick and ask him also about Rapid Deploy. Rapid Deploy, on who Rapid Deploy is and what do they do, and then we'll go back to you here in just one moment, Sherry.
Great, thanks. So, at a super high level, for those of us who don't know us, right? Rapid Deploy, probably one of the earliest cloud native software as a service companies providing solutions into public safety. I mentioned earlier, right? Our mission of reducing response time, right? So our job is to help first responders get on scene faster with as much information as they can. And for us, that starts with the call taker. So Radius Map is now almost well over 25% of the US. And what that means is we integrate with the telephony system. So during that off-hook event, our map automatically indexes to as much data as we know about that location, that phone number, or that vehicle in the case of OnStar. So that integration has allowed us to really embed data for our partners directly into the PSAP in an impactful, meaningful way. And so we also have an analytics tools that helps PSAPs run more efficiently. It's around how call centers run, from how many calls they get to where they came from, and are they missed or are they dropped. That's a county, a state, or even a city. But for for the dispatcher and the call taker, right, the people in the headset, Radius is the product they see every day from Rapid Deploy.
So, with everything that you've said here, how did this partnership, come together? I mean, just in your description and everything, and also, everything that Sherry was saying, it seems like it was basically a no-brainer. But how did this come together?
Well, I say that we've been very deliberate. So every time there's a new set of data coming into a PSAP, in this case, vehicle telematics, rapid deploy, we talked early on, and we look at the leaders in the industry and the people that are making impactful change. And we choose one, right? We choose a partner to get it right with. And so in the case of OnStar, Kathy Bishop and our founder, Steve Raucher, met at a conference and said, look at all the good we could do. And so soon after that, we got a support from the state of California to run a statewide pilot, if you will, to get it right. We ran it for almost 6 months. We watched, we listened, we changed, we tweaked, we adjusted, and then that later rolled out nationwide to all of our PSAPs. But really, for us, again, it's that collaboration of how to get it right for the call taker that ultimately, I guess I believe, is the most impactful way to drive adoption. And the team here can speak a little bit, and until a PSAP has really adopted data and does something with it, it's just information. So how do we drive adoption has been the big question that the OnStar team and us have been continuously focused on.
It's funny, right? Because we talk about these conferences, just like we were saying in the beginning, with between Sherry and I, and you and I specifically, we did an episode as well. We did a broadcast and everything, and a lot of this stuff, that's how this starts, right? It's just a conversation. It's just kind of playing the what if game. What if we did this? How would this turn out? And then it just continues to roll and roll, and like, this is a no-brainer. Let's actually put this into, bring it into fruition and have it continue to go on. So, for you and Sherry, I want to ask you this as well. And Mitch, how does this feel to be able to put this partnership together and see how it's working out, and just all of it, even going into the future? It's got to be a good feeling.
Well, from my perspective, it's extremely exciting to see technology progress since I was in the PSAP in '96, and to see these partnerships surface and the benefits to both those under the headset as well as public safety and our first responders.
So then, as you brought that up, then let's go back a little bit on just to reflect a little bit here on your dispatch career. How has the technology changed from that time? Now, you mentioned '96, how you mentioned or the technology from then, but even moving on, because myself, I started in 2001, and none of this technology was really out there. It was all just kind of talk, as we said. It was just conversation, talking about it, and then people start building it up. So how has it changed?
Well, back in '96, which is ironically the same year OnStar began,
Oh,
um, if you think about the call volume, a majority of that was landline, and some of it was cellular or mobile phones. And now it's completely flipped around. It's completely mostly mobile and very few landline, which location continues to be a challenge. So location, that part of it has not changed. We're always looking to validate the location and get descriptive information from callers. I remember how challenging that was, sitting in the chair under the headset, getting the location of some of these incidents from callers who were distraught, and it's very challenging. And the technology, as it progresses, just continues to make the location even better and more precise. Um, I think that there alone is one of the biggest advantages to the evolution of technology, and also having that data available to the call takers and the 911 staff. I think about some of the calls that I had taken back then, and I think about what OnStar is able to do, or even when I first joined OnStar in 2007. I thought, wow, if I'd have just really known all of the details of what OnStar had available, then I probably could have been a little bit more better in my asking OnStar questions, or validating location and getting help a little more efficiently. And that's going to be an ongoing challenge with the technology as it continues to progress and evolve. But I think the one thing that Rapid Deploy and OnStar were really focused on doing is making sure that the right information is presented to those taking the calls in the ECC. I mean, because we could give them an abundance of information, but without knowing exactly what we want them, to have, and make sure they know they get what they need without a lot of excess information, it helps them and become more efficient as well. So I think about crashes and, of course, stolen vehicles. Uh, I recall getting a call from a citizen who was just over the border, and her vehicle had been stolen with her granddaughter in the back seat. And I think about OnStar, and they would have been the first ones I would have called to see if we could locate the vehicle and find them. But there's just so much technology that specifically revolves around location, but all of this other data that can really help the ECCs, because we all know that they're struggling with budgets, with staffing, and we're committed to be a partner and help them in providing safety and to public safety and keeping first responders safe. So it's very important for us to make sure that we are a tool that they can leverage and not interfere with the process. And this partnership with Rapid Deploy really helps to promote that.
I think that's why conversations like this is so important because, as you mentioned, thinking about when you were back in dispatch and everything, if you the way you said it, if you would have known a little bit more about OnStar's process and just some of the things that they need, it would have probably helped you a lot better in receiving those phone calls. So that's why I say these conversations are good, because those who are watching, they'll learn a lot more from it and question even more so. I do have a question though. With all the new technology that's out here, do you ever feel slightly jealous of those who are in the chair who are using this? I know I do sometimes, because I think, man, if I only would have had this then, it would be so cool to be able to put all this in there. Because, like you, I remember these phone calls too, where I felt helpless, where I didn't have their location or anything like that. But if you don't feel jealous, maybe more so you're just happy in the fact that you're able to provide something for them, to be able to put out there.
Yes, is the answer. Yes, I'm a little envious of not having the tools that they have now at their fingertips, but I'm also really excited to be part of the new generation that gives them some of this information and makes their role easier. They're there to serve the communities, and we're really proud to support them in that role. And for me, coming from that industry, it just strengthens my passion even further.
Looking in the comments here really quick, Patrick here says, I agree with locations. I had a call this other day on 911 and they said, send help. It's the first house near the school. Okay. Yeah, it's like saying it's near Bob's Road, and you're like, I don't know where Bob's Road is. But yes, to have this technology and everything, to be able to put it out there, especially with this partnership and how you all are doing it, and so many others and such, but especially this way, it definitely helps those not only out there on the road, but also those who are taking these calls. Now, Mitch, I want to go to you here, and kind of ask something similar. Your time in the fire service and how technology has progressed from when you started to the way it is now.
Yeah, it's really the same story, right? So, I mean, in the early '90s when I started in the fire service, we were still taking calls being transferred into our fire station from the dispatch center. So we would speak to the callers and get whatever information we needed to get out the door and get on the road. So we had very limited, data and information related to the call. And you fast forward now almost 30 years, and the amount of information, the amount of technology out there is absolutely amazing. This kind of stuff really helps make decisions that weren't being made in the past because you just didn't have the information to make it. So coming out the door, especially for somebody like an incident commander who has to make decisions on the fly based on what they know as they're maybe stepping into the truck. Having more data, having more information helps them to make those decisions, whether it's to call for mutual aid, or maybe it's an area where they use air medical transport a lot and they want to put that on standby, things like that. The quicker you can do that, obviously, the better. And having that data on the front end, as early in the call as you can, is certainly helpful. So, yeah, a lot of changes over 30 years. It's all great stuff. And in the end, it's all great for those that were out there serving.
Now, what drove you to kind of look into OnStar and make that transition and working for the company? And Sherry, I want to ask you the same question here after Mitch.
Yeah, I think it was a great opportunity to have an impact on emergency response across the country. And there's a lot of great things that OnStar can provide to responders. Telematic data that comes through that, I'll be honest with you, when I was still the fire chief or still out riding on a fire truck or an ambulance, I didn't know a lot of that stuff. And I was really shocked to know that OnStar has all of this data. It can be provided to the dispatch center. That stuff that can be relayed to the responders. That was really important to me, and an opportunity to go out and do what we do in our outreach efforts and spread that message to first responders and dispatch agencies and everybody across the country. It was an attractive proposition to me, and it's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, it has to, as I mentioned before, just be satisfying. That
Yeah.
feeling to be able to be working for a company that has just such a solid mission in doing something that you believe in, and really helping those that are out there. Now, Sherry, same thing. What kind of drove you towards OnStar when you were making that transition out of dispatch into where you're at now?
Well, honestly, it was really not a planned transition. It just kind of happened. Um, the job posting, they were looking for, OnStar was looking for someone with emergency services background in the PSAP and also training background, which happened to be my degree at the time. And it was a perfect fusion of both my passion in training as well as emergency services. So it just made sense. It gave me a new audience, a new group of learners, to get to know the advisors. It was just unbelievable to create training for them, to help them do their job even better by providing my insight and some of the background so that they could use those tips and tricks in their training and answer the calls. So it was really not a planned move, but I definitely am thoroughly enjoying what I've been able to be part of for the last 15, 16 years. Um, and I'll be honest, when I started at OnStar, I thought, from coming from the ECC, I thought the advisors, do they really take the same calls? Do they really get 911 calls that are urgent like I did in the call center or in the ECC? And I was surprised. I was so shocked that the calls that they're handling are everything from domestics in the vehicles to sexual assaults in the vehicles, very severe traumatizing incidents as well, crashes where people are just begging for help and asking for assistance, which prompted OnStar to move towards having our advisors become EMD trained and certified to help these individuals who are asking for assistance. So I think that really was a huge benefit because, as I mentioned earlier, the ECCs are struggling with staffing right now, and our advisors stay on the line, so they're able to stay on the line until first responders get there, and also provide pre-arrival instructions um, while the ECCs are able to handle other calls that come in. So it wasn't necessarily a planned transition for me, but it's definitely gotten more exciting over the last several years. If you think about how long we've been talking about next gen 911, and now we're finally seeing actionable next gen 911 occur with data and sending it to the ECCs electronically. It's just amazing to see it come full circle. And I just think that on the horizon, it's going to continue to be uh, amazing to be able to help people so much more efficiently. And it just, in general, it's gonna be great to continue down this path.
I think this is really good for people to hear this because I know myself in the beginning, I didn't know what your advisors and such were taking. All of the calls that were coming in, and just like you said, right now, I mean, you've got domestics, you have all kinds of different things, but mostly because all the calls that I was taking, it was just crash. It was there were crashes and everything, but to know that they're doing so much more, and the fact that they're EMD certified as well, giving pre-arrival instructions and everything else, like that is the stuff that people need to know as well. Like they're doing all of this too, and we're all connected and part of the same family. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you for sharing that part as well, because people don't know that, and that's why these conversations are important.
Yeah,
Now,
if you don't mind, I was just going to also
yeah, go
mention,
ahead. Yeah.
the advisors. A lot of you mentioned you get the crashes are a
Mhm.
majority of the calls that come into the ECC, and that's true. Um, but a majority of the calls that our advisors may get are also accidental. So they triage and weed those calls out before they get to the ECCs. So they're validating whether or not there's a true emergency and then contacting the ECCs. That's really a crucial part for us as well, so that the fact that we have a live advisor on these calls able to do that to make sure that the ECCs are getting legitimate emergencies is
Mhm.
really important to us.
See,
I,
again, that is awesome there.
I'll
Go ahead.
jump in and second that for a second, and that is we have so many partners that are saying, send this data, and human triage data from an IoT perspective, from a vehicle telematics perspective. I believe, and we believe, that is absolutely essential to get data well adopted into PSAPs. Imagine if every single accidental OnStar activation went over to an ECC. They just start ignoring it. They'd be like, oh, there's another. Oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know this. The fact that they can trust it, that it's scored, that there's real data behind the request to an ECC for public safety support is massive. I mean, that's exactly what will help us drive adoption.
That is excellent. And again, good information to know that the stuff that's coming in is legit. It's being triaged. Everything else is being gone through. I want to jump over here now to the importance of including telematics data in the call taker workflow. Now, Mitch, you might be able to take this one here as well, or whichever one wants to take this. But that is one of the main parts that we want to get into here: the importance of including telematics data in the call taker workflow. But also, as the call comes in and the data is there alongside the call, and the other relevant data.
I can do the beginning, and Mitch is going to do the important part. And again, as I said, so in the flow of the call taker means when the headset goes on during that off-hook event, the map is going to index to the location, in this case, the location of the OnStar vehicle that has the emergency. It's going to show that it's an OnStar vehicle set of data. And so now the call taker instantaneously understands who's on the line, they're speaking on behalf of a customer, where the vehicle is, and moving to that data. Whereas before, or without our solution, right, that data might be coming over all verbally. Right, so that's a piece of it. But at the same time, pivoting away from OnStar for a brief second, it's the same screen for ELS and EED mobile location data. It's the same screen for panic buttons for schools. It's the same screen for indoor floor plans for schools. So that ability to glance over, take the data you need, determine if that call requires a deep dive on data that's there, or if it's a call that may not be as serious, right? I know there's a fair number of calls that come in that are not life-threatening, and all the data isn't as important. But when it comes to the OnStar call coming in, they glance over, they understand it's an OnStar call, they understand it's been triaged, they have all the data, they can copy that data, and they can move that directly into whatever call taking application they have. So whatever screen they're populating that data, and then that data becomes available to everybody in the incident. And Mitch, I think it's for you to kind of say how that data is used or best used from there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, to me, that's the important part. That data then becomes available to everybody involved in the incident, right? So from a responder perspective, knowing as much as you can on the front end of that incident, on the front end of that call, right at dispatch time, is critical, because there's a lot of decisions that could be made that may not be made in the absence of that data. So, speaking from experience, I can think of many times where the call was different when we arrived on scene, or from when it was dispatched than to when we arrived on scene. It was more significant. And if we had more data on the front end, we would have called for resources sooner. So you may have agencies that need mutual aid. You may have agencies that just call for, more engine companies or ambulances or whatever it is. That with the appropriate data, you can make those decisions ahead of time. You can at least have an idea. As an incident commander, you're always somewhat painting a picture in your head before you arrive on scene. You're taking in all this information from everything that comes across on the dispatch to the weather conditions, all those things. You paint this picture and you formulate your plan. The more data you have, it's just more pieces of the puzzle that help you fill in the blanks before you get there. And sometimes, a lot of times, that'll lead you to make some decisions before you get there. You'll say, start me another ambulance, or start me another engine company, or contact the air medical ambulance, or whatever it may be. It may be as simple as just requesting law enforcement to shut down a busy expressway that you're on. But all of those pieces kind of start to formulate that puzzle for an incident commander who's making decisions very quickly with, truthfully, limited data. The more we can fill in the blanks, the better that picture will be, and the better opportunity they'll have to bring those resources to the scene in a more timely manner, right? And that's really part of the goal, right, is to get the resources there as quickly as possible, not just the initial dispatch resources, but also other things they might want. And if we can do that with data on the front end, we can make those requests earlier. All of that arrives on scene quicker, provides the service quicker.
Now, do you know of any centers any ECCs who have actually changed, some of their protocols, or how they respond to certain things with the fact that they have all of this data now? And so to understand a little bit better, just for an example, the company that I was working for before I went on my own, I was doing all of their training for their text for 911 platform. So they had they were one of the first ones, or actually, I believe the first one in 2013, to start providing outbound texting, which was dispatch initiated text from 911. So if there was a 911 hang up call, they would text from 911 first. They would still call, but they found, or dispatch centers found, that people were responding more to that outbound text than the phone calls, right? For whatever reason, people don't want to answer their phone. So in the state of Indiana, it was enough to where they completely changed their protocols on how they would respond to these 911 hang-up calls. They would start with an outbound text first, and then they would call, and it was saving them resources and everything. So that's the example here. Have you heard of any other ECCs or anything that have kind of changed that? As you were saying, you're trying to save time, right? You need to know the response level or anything, but with this data, and depending on how it's coming in, I would see, or kind of think that they would kind of change certain things a little bit.
Yeah, I think from the EMD perspective, I know our advisors are trained through the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen some changes in the SOPs from the ECCs, where now they will ask for the determinant code when receiving an OnStar crash incident, or if they know that we are using a certain protocol, they'll ask for that. For crashes, they'll ask for some of the crash data. It may be part of their SOPs. Even law enforcement, we're seeing some of the implementation of the vehicle location technology into their SOPs. Or is it a General Motors vehicle that's involved? Call OnStar. Can we slow the vehicle down? So I think that they are implementing and adding more technology into their SOPs to remind them of, hey, don't forget to use this, and let's just make it easier for everyone and safer, and get care to the patients quicker through this data transfer.
I think if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, you need to look more into some of this, and because I'd be able to prepare myself for a lot of different things. Just as you were saying earlier, if you knew a lot more about what OnStar does, and how they were doing things, and some of the stuff that they actually need, it would have been maybe a lot smoother process. Not saying that it wasn't smooth to begin with, because it's pretty good as it is, but you would just be more prepared, is what I'm getting at. So that's what I would have done as well. So what are some of the actual telematics data that are available to 911?
So we've been verbally relaying some of this data for quite some time, since the early 2000s, 2004. But a lot of the data that we transfer over through Rapid Deploy involves, of course, the location, the latitude and longitude, the incident number, the vehicle year, make, model, color, the engine type, the propulsion type is definitely something that's very important for first responders, because since we're moving to an all electric vehicle platform, they need to know what they're approaching when they get to a crash incident. So whether the vehicle's an electric vehicle or not is also part of the data that's transferred over. Again, a lot of the crash information too, if there's a high probability of severe injury, if the airbags have deployed, if it's been involved in multiple impacts, the principal direction of force, all of this information that can be shared in with the rapid deploy, and then accompanied with the triage of the voice call, is crucial.
Now, going over to Mitch, kind of to build on what Sherry just mentioned here as well. But I also want to ask, because like I said, I saw you at the conference a year ago, one of the national conferences. I'm not sure if you were at the most recent one, the Nina one, but what I'm getting at is what is kind of some of the stuff that you're hearing, not only about this partnership, but also the telematics data that's available to 911 from others.
From the responder side, they want the information, right? So, emergency response is typically, driven by protocol or SOPs or all those things. But you can only put those in place if you have the right information, right? So Sherry brought it up in this theme, the electric vehicle part. We can tell responders, we can tell them whether it's an electric vehicle they're responding to. So if an agency, and a lot of agencies, most response agencies are either have implemented or are developing protocols for responding to electric vehicles, those don't do much good on the way there if you don't know you're responding to an electric vehicle. Now you're arriving on scene, you have to make the decisions when you get there and those things. So knowing that you're responding to an incident that potentially involves an electric vehicle, you can implement that protocol or that SOP ahead of time, whatever that might be. Some agencies, if they're in rural areas that don't have fire hydrants, they may be sending an additional truck with more water on it in case there's a fire and all those things. But whatever the protocol dictates, you only implement the protocol. You only put it into play when you know that that's what you're responding to. So the electric vehicle part of it's a great example. It's protocol. It's data driven. It results in a protocol being used, and provides the service the way it's supposed to be, instead of being behind when you arrive on scene and say, oh, this is this instead. We need to summon these additional resources. So I think that's a good example of how that information is kind of driving some behaviors and some response type events on the front end.
Man, is the stuff like this gets me excited. Definitely excited for the future and how it has all come together. Now, Todd, I meant to mention you before that question. Some of the stuff that you've heard, about not just his partnership, but also telematics data in 911, and just there's got to be. I can see there's excitement behind it, and even if it's just you personally.
No,
the
again,
excitement behind this.
Yeah, no, and again, we've got, a customer success team that talks with their PSAPs, and one of the best indications we have, right, is PSAPs call us and they say, you're not going to believe what we did, or you're not going to believe how we fixed this, whether you consider it a save story or a customer story. But for us, like I said, when we first launched California, that was a ton of listening. They're like, well, we don't like this. We like this. We'd rather have this information, or we don't understand this. How can we learn more? So implementing some of the things to get the education through and understood. But I guess pointing to Mitch's comment, until there's an SOP behind it, right? It's still, it's information, and the call taker is human triaging that. They're painting that picture. They're deciding what goes in, and the SOPs change that. The most interesting story I had was they had in the world where primary and secondary PSAPs, right? A secondary PSAP doesn't get the first call. Sometimes calls, I don't want to say, they may not arrive instantly. They might get stuck in a queue. Maybe they're coming through the primary PSAP and then they get transferred out. Well, in our system, the OnStar signal is visible to the secondary PSAPs. So, we had a couple of, chiefs that were like, they're kind of like, they can see it coming, right? And so they're seeing that this call is going to happen. And so when we start to hear stories about, we actually start rolling a vehicle based on the data, that's powerful, right? That's again, this is a chief taking an initiative as opposed to it's embedded in the SOP and it all happens, but someone sitting there and being able to start reacting to data tells me we're on the right track.
Now, I want to go back really quick to what you mentioned about when this first started rolling out in California, and there was a lot of listening. So this is one of the things that I love the most about your company, as well as OnStar, and a lot of industry partners that do this, and that is listening to the users. How important is that? How important is it to listen to the folks that are going to be using this technology?
It is, I would say it's essential, but it is core to the business, right? There is so much data available, and having that, what we consider as a single unified screen for data. I mean, there's lots of tools like, as a call taker, you get a call and you're like, oh, I got to go log into this system, or I got to go look for this on here, or I got to go find the password to get to that video system, there's no time for that when it's that most important call. Like you just start firing, you just send the call on to dispatch and you move because it's so critical.
Mm-hmm.
Having it all in one screen and having a lot of data in one screen from lots of different sources can be really difficult to manage. So again, sometimes I get criticized for not going fast enough and having enough partners into the network soon enough, but having a cadence and a pace that allows the PSAP to adopt data is our mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I just fired all sorts of data at them and there's pop-ups and things that they have to manage, they won't use it, right? And so our adoption and our customers' feedback is that's what it's all about for our team. And again, of course, you get a bunch of tech people that build something and they think it's amazing, and then you put it in front of a bunch of call takers or dispatchers, like, and that pause for a moment, like, well, we think it looks great. They're like, okay, I realize that, but I'm using it in the dark at 3 a.m. and you got to change that pin color to that color, and you got to do this. And we have a customer advisory board that are VP of product chairs, and we have a great mix of what we consider PSAP leaders, right, which might be a regional council of government or even a state leadership, PSAP administrators in our system who actually do the work of administrating our platform but take calls, and then call takers. And so we talk about everything that's coming. Would you like to see this? Do you want to see this? How would you like to see it? And so that feedback, like I said, is embedded in the product team all the way through the organization. And in California, Sherry and everybody downstairs was right there with us. I mean, there was weekly calls and there was stacks of PSAPs where we were onboarding them, asking them questions, getting feedback side by side with our partner, which is the way it should be.
I couldn't agree more. And the fact that it is all in one spot, I'm just going to say this, it would be a pain in the ass to me if I'm having to have like 4 different mice and try to find whatever screen that it's on or whatever to be able to have it there and not have to worry, about anything else. That is key. I'm all about that. That is excellent. And the fact that, again, that you're listening to those that are there that are going to be using it, what they need, especially those who work at night. I work midnight shift all the time, and we had no lights on. It was just the glow of the screens. So thank you for that. Now, going to Sherry and Mitch, same thing, kind of build upon what Todd had said here. How important is it to listen to the folks, from your side at OnStar as well, that are going to be using this?
Well, as Todd said, it's crucial. I think that's one reason our partnership, it just made sense. It's perfect. We have the same goal. OnStar has our customers, our members, but first responders and EECC, they're also our customers. So it's very important for us to hear their feedback. We also have a public safety advisory council where we have a group of cross disciplines within public safety from the US and Canada. And we share new services, new ideas, new products that may be rolling out and get their feedback and thoughts to make sure we're taking into account all the necessary angles so that it's going to be beneficial to their job. again, we never want to be a hindrance. We're committed to supporting the public safety, and that's key. I mean, when we did stolen vehicle slowdown, we sought out a lot of feedback before that entire service was rolled out. And if obviously between myself and Mitch, we have a public safety background, but several other members of our team, Kathy Bishop and a few others, also have that background. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right and making sure that they get what they need when they need it, and it's efficient. So it's crucial that we listen to the feedback and seek it out.
Now, and you speak from, the dispatch side, but going over to Mitch now from the fire side, same question because, we've got a different perspective here now. So how does that work there?
Yeah, I think it's the same, and I think a little bit of that's evidenced by a big part of what Sherry and I do, and what a big part of what our team does is we're out and we're at the conferences, we're at the events, and we speak at those. We do presentations, we do some things that are educational, but often, most of the time, we also have a booth in the vendor show, and we have some things, some really neat things that we give away, and I love the OnStar pens and those things, but really why we're there is to hear from everybody and to take that feedback. So that puts us out there face to face with all of our partners, and we hope that they come to the booth, and we hope that they tell us what they think. And we hear great stories. We do hear some things sometimes where they say, hey, I wish this could have happened, or I wish that you could do this. And I can assure you, we bring all of that back. We summarize our events, and we come back and we make sure that feedback is heard. That's critical to us to make sure we're doing it right, and being able to be out there at all of these events and really be face to face with our partners, whether it's on the communication side or it's on the fire side or EMS or law enforcement. We're present at those for that reason, so that we can take that feedback.
Now, what is one of the most important things that you want people to know? That you want them to take away from this round, from round 31, on not just the partnership, but what it is that you all are offering there, with OnStar. And then, Todd, I'll ask you the same question here, but what's one of those most important things that you want people to take away from all of this?
I think I would like them to take away the fact that OnStar's been here for 25 years. We have listened to the feedback and evolved over those 25 years, the technology as well. And just to have some, to understand that our advisors are trained to a specific degree, that the data that is being sent to them is credible and they can act on it, and that we can be used as a tool in their toolbox to help in their calls and their call volume.
Excellent. What about you, Todd?
So I had to do one digress, and that is we talked about why OnStar, and I go back to they're at every show. And I remember meeting you all when you had that booth with the 50s cars as couches, and everybody was hanging out. I'm like, they're there at every show. Mm-hmm. But the thing I want to say, that we would want to take away, and again, I'm always happy if people want to use more software, but I mean, at the end of the day, I want people your listeners and in the PSAPs to know that you can change the outcome with data, and we can get the right resources there sooner if the SOPs are in progress, right? So if that data, the way you treat the data is embedded into your organization and everybody knows how to use it, it will improve response times. And that's it. That's the mic drop moment of what I think we want together. Is we want agencies to reach out to us and say, how can I operationalize this data? What can I do with it? Help me understand it more. Help me write an SOP. Give me best practice, or send us your examples. Send us an example of an SOP you've implemented and what you've done well with, that we can share that and evangelize that for you for the rest of the industry. Because, I say the public safety agency, it collaborates. It doesn't compete. Right. So if you're doing something and it's working, let us share it if you want a voice and us to be able to put that out into the universe.
Excellent. So this leads me to my next question here. And Todd, I'll start with you. What excites you about the future of this data that can be used in 911?
It's not slowing down. It's going to accelerate.
Yeah.
And I believe we're laying the foundation for people to operationalize data. And as that happens, right, that speed, that uptake will happen faster and faster, right? So the first time OnStar called the PSAP, they're like, you're who and what? And then the second time made it easier, and the third time, right? And after the 5,000th time, right, there's a reliance on the data.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing's happening in the Radius product in relation to the call taker application, in the flow of the call. People are reacting to it and they're being able to speed up and they're being able to do more and they're taking in more data. And so as we add panic buttons for schools and we add indoor floor plans for schools, all this data that's like, as you drill in, there's more and more available. That's what's getting exciting.
Yeah, and just the way Stacy says here as well, in in agreement with you, there's so much to be excited about, and there is, and I also want to hear from Mitch and Sherry. So let's go with Mitch. What are you excited about the future of data 911 telematics
Yeah.
data?
Yeah, the data driven decision making, right? I mean, having that information is so critical. The ability to take it from its origin and for it to end up in the right place, right through the communications and to the responders. That's where it belongs. That's where it has to end up. And any opportunity to get it out there is fantastic. This is absolutely amazing. Again, I look back 30 years ago when I started, we were taking the 911 calls and in the fire stations, and now we have information that is coming from the scene and is usable and actionable. That's very, very exciting to me.
What about you, Sherry?
Ultimately, it's that end outcome, improving patient outcomes, saving lives, and just all this data can be leveraged to help that and support it. And that is just, I mean, of course, that was probably part of my passion of being involved in emergency services throughout my career, whether it was at the PSAP or at OnStar, and it's just helping other people. Todd mentioned, the data is this is just the beginning. There's so many other opportunities to send other types of data, and what else can we do to positively impact those outcomes? And it's just getting started. It really is.
It's something, especially to hear you say it's just getting started and all, because if you think back, and this is not just 911, this is technology in general. We would see sci-fi films, and we'd see all of this different stuff. I think it was on Star Trek I saw once where they were showing what is now like an iPad, right? They had a bunch of different things, and we would see all these things and think, man, I wonder when that's going to happen. I wonder when it's going to come out, and then bam, it all comes out of nowhere. And then we're saying, when is 911 going to catch up? And then again, bam, it starts building and building and building. So the stuff that we're seeing on TV, movies, whatever, is starting to come in and just really start pushing forward. But just like you said, this is just scratching the surface, right? And there's so much more that's going to be coming up. So with that said, as we go into the wrap up of this, Sherry, and I want to get a take from all three of you. Um, for those who might be, because there's a lot, right? Maybe still a lot. But for those who might be on the fence about, new technology and using this, harnessing the power of this technology and this rich data that we can do so much with now, what advice do you have for those who might be on the fence of jumping over and really harnessing this?
Take the leap. Change is difficult. I remember in the PSAP when you changed from one CAD system to the other, it was like, oh, I don't want to do this, and it was all the challenges. But change can be so good, and just give it a try. What can you lose? I mean, but what can you gain? I, I mean, that is really the big question here. What can you gain by using it? And I think the benefits far outweigh the not accepting technology. There's still a few people out there who, we all have our challenges with different technology and smartphones and other things, but give it a try, and you'd be surprised at how much easier your life can be.
Amazing. What about you, Mitch?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Take the leap, right? I mean, we do it for a reason. It's to improve the service. It's to improve the service we're providing to our communities, and take the leap. A lot of the things that we do today were changes yesterday, right? And we've all accepted those, and that's how we're living. Move forward and try to improve what we do every day.
Excellent. Todd?
Of course, I'm committed to taking the leap, but I would say, for the people that are on the fence, I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we've got references in almost every different size and shape PSAP. Talk to them. There's blog posts, there's reference stories, there's video content. Find out how to get yourself the confidence, because without that confidence and commitment, right, at the leadership level of the PSAP, it won't happen. Mm-hmm. And so once the team says, I understand it, I understand the referenceability, I know this is going to work, I know it's going to be hard work, but it will be worth it because I can see the evidence.
Amazing. This has been an excellent round, and I have myself learned a lot about the both of you, what you're doing. And again, man, if I could go back in time, I would tell myself to learn a lot more so that I could be better prepared when OnStar was calling in to give them that information that they needed right away. So this is good. These are questions, and this is stuff that people are learning, and they'll be able to get a hold of all of you. So with that said, Todd, how can people find out more about Rapid Deploy?
Easiest as, we're rapiddeploy.com. Send us a contact note. We're on LinkedIn. We do lots of social media posts. You can always reach out to me directly. My email is very easy to find, tck@rapiddeploy.com. But sales@rapiddeploy.com will get us the real team that can help you make the great decision about what you need and if it's a fit.
Awesome. And then Sherry, same thing. How can people find out more about everything that's going on at OnStar?
Well, as Mitch mentioned, we are, and Todd as well, we are at a lot of conferences. Stop by, speak to us, ask us questions, give us feedback. Our website is onstar.com/public safety. And if you have questions and you want to learn more from us directly, we have an email. It's called emergencyservices@onstar.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that come in.
Perfect. Awesome. Again, thank you all so much for being on here. This has been an excellent round, and I know a lot of people will end up learning so much about everything that both of you are doing, and harness this data that is coming in, because there's only good that comes from it. And like you said, what are you missing out of? What are you going to gain from all of this? That is the quote here. What are you going to gain? This has been excellent. Thank you both, or all three of you rather, so much for being on. This has been a good round.
Ricardo, thanks for what you do. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo.
All right. I will be back with you here in just one moment. For all of those who are watching right now, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, or you have a topic for the Dispatchers Roundtable for us to go through, please email us. And that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This roundtable broadcast has been sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbine. However, this was an exclusive Rapid Deploy roundtable, round 31. Again, thank you so very much. Shout out to patrons as always for everything. This can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And then for patrons only, audio versions of this as well, the DRT as well as Open Mic Live. And then for the flagship show, Within the Trenches Podcast, you can listen 24/7, and that's on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.